We have a thermal printer here. We have a thermal printer here. I have another thermal printer somewhere around here. And now we have another thermal printer to try. This video is in partnership with iDPRT, who was kind enough to send me yet another thermal printer. Even though I already have 3 around here, we're going to add a 4th one to the collection. The special thing about this thermal printer is that it's supposed to be very comparable to my Rollo, which is the one that I've always used since the beginning, the one that I use daily for my business. This one is supposed to be very comparable to the Rollo, but at a cheaper price. So let's see how this thermal printer actually compares to my tried and true Rollo.
She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment. Now come on now.
So let's start with unboxing it, because this is supposed to be comparable in size to the Rollo. It's supposed to print just as good as the Rollo, and I want to see how loud it is too, because some of these thermal printers can be very loud. So let me open it up first. They even gave a stack of labels, I guess, to start out with, but you guys know I told you how to get them for free. And right upon opening, I can see that this one is much bigger than my Rollo. It's probably about double the size of the Rollo. If you guys are seeing that, I prefer as small as possible so it's not taking up too much space on my desk. That's why I don't use that first one that I showed you guys, because it is so big. I'll pull it out if need be. If I'm doing a lot of printing, let's say a lot of stickers or anything like that, then I'll pull that one out. But when it comes to size, my Rollo is already still my top choice. But let's see how well it does as far as printing, because if it does compare to the Rollo when it comes to printing, then maybe I can tolerate this being a little bigger, being that it is cheaper. Okay, so we're at my computer now and we're going to test out the printing. And right off the rip, the first thing I noticed is that this power cord for the iDPRT is short. My outlet is down on the floor, and this thing, like, this is how long it is. It does not reach the floor. Like, my desk is taller than this cord. So I don't know how this is about to work, but I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to get this plugged up so that way I can actually test the printing. So I just downloaded a test shipping label that I want to try both on the Rollo and on the iDPRT. This model number is the SP410. I did not mention that, but I'm going to start with the Rollo. I want you to pay attention to sound and speed when it comes to comparing the two, but let's start with the Rollo first. Okay, that was the Rollo, and my test shipping label did not print out how it was supposed to. So let me try another one. Okay, that is my fault. I know I was printing that way. I didn't change my paper size. There we go. Okay, now we're going to go to the SP410. Pay attention to sound and speed compared to what we just did on the Rollo. Okay, so I now finally have both labels printed. This one here, if my camera will focus. So this one is from the Rollo, which, as you can see, my Rollo sometimes will print more than one label, which is annoying. I hate when it does that. And then here is the one from the SP410. So I'm putting them side by side. I'll put a better image. Oh, I think it's finally focusing. So that way you guys can see the difference, but I'm going to share my opinion on these in a moment. So now that we've actually tested the printing, got to compare the speed and the sound of the two, let's compare the actual printing. Now, I like to pay attention to speed, especially when you're printing several shipping labels or custom packaging labels. Whatever you're printing, time matters. So you want that speed, but you also want to make sure it's precise. So I did like to pay attention to speed. They were relatively close. I also like to pay attention to the sound because I don't want everything too loud. So I do pay attention to the sound as well. Again, it wasn't too bad of a difference. So I'm not going to judge the SP410 off of sound or speed because it was pretty close to the Rollo, which is actually a good thing considering it's cheaper. So let's actually look at the printing. Now, this one here is the Rollo printing. Remember, it printed that extra label, which I don't like about the Rollo. SP410 only printed the one. It may be something with my settings when it comes to Rollo, but I've been using it for years and it does this quite often. But let's actually look at the printing, which I may have to put it on the screen because, of course, the lights is directly behind my camera, so you may not be able to see everything anything, but when it comes to printing, I've noticed that Rollo, yet again, prints much bolder than SP410, which was the same when it came to my SP420, the big bulky one that I showed you guys in a previous video. That one, it also didn't print as bold as the Rollo. So you'll notice it a lot on like finer, smaller printing, like you'll notice in this top right corner on the SP410 label. It's not as quite as bold as the Rollo. And then there's some other small fonts, like right here is not as bold as like on here. So when it comes to smaller fonts, finer fonts, it doesn't print as well. It's not as legible as on the Rollo. But I will say, if you look at the barcodes, the Rollo is much more bold than the SP410, which coming from like a UPS driver's perspective, which I'm not a driver of course, but I have really good relationships with my drivers, and I do hear it from them when the labels have the barcodes are too bold, they're actually harder to scan. Now when it comes to my labels with the Rollo, I've never had an issue with the driver scanning them, but the finer, more precise barcodes are actually easier to scan. So this may actually be better than a Rollo when it comes to the barcodes. Now I'll have to have a driver test the labels for me. Can't have them test these ones because one, they're FedEx sample labels, which I use UPS, and they're also sample labels as I mentioned, so they're not going to scan. But I'll have to test it out with my UPS driver and see if the scanning is actually better on the SP410 when it comes to the barcodes. Now, the other thing I discovered as I was setting up my SP410 to my computer is that it also has Bluetooth capabilities. Now, I thought I remember that when it was originally pitched to me to share with you guys on the SP410, but when I was looking at the directions, I didn't see it talking about the wireless features in the directions, but it does in fact have a wireless feature. Now, Rollo does have a wireless option when it comes to their thermal printers as well, but when I originally purchased mine, there was no wireless option, so I have the wired Rollo Thermal Printer, whereas my SP410 is wireless. I did attempt to use the wireless feature on my SP410 when I was doing the test printing, but for some reason every time I connected it through Bluetooth, because that's how you would use it wirelessly, it would continue to disconnect from my computer and I actually couldn't use it. I had to plug it up. After doing a little more research, I learned that the SP410 only works wirelessly with Windows computers. Since I have a Mac, the wireless feature does not work with the SP410 on my computer. So for those of you that are using Macs, it will not work wirelessly. You actually have to plug it in. I thought the wireless feature was going to be the solution to the short power cord. Considering I have shelving on my desk, I would have just put it on a lower shelf so that way the cord can reach the outlet, because the way I have it set up right now, it's not going to work for me if I want to continue using this printer. So I have to figure out another solution when it comes to the power cord. The wireless option would have been the solution, but since I use a Mac, that's not going to work for me. With that being said, you can print from mobile devices, so from your phone or from an iPad or anything like that. So I do have my phone here and I've downloaded the app, because there is an app of course you have to download in order to print wirelessly. So I've downloaded the app, it's called Here Label, and I am going to test printing out a test label from my phone to the SP410, which is on my desk right now, and let's see if it actually prints wirelessly for me. Now I already have the test label already set up. They already have one available for me on the app, so I'm just going to go ahead and press print. And you guys should be able to hear that. I did hear the printer going in the background, so let's look at the label. And sure enough, it did print the test label directly from my phone. So while I could not use the wireless feature on my computer, I could use it on my iPad or on my phone, which is nice because if I'm on the go and I need to do things, I can print through Bluetooth. And it's not with Wi-Fi, although I did see a Wi-Fi option on here. It is strictly through Bluetooth. The wireless option does work on here, so maybe that's something I can consider, printing my labels from my iPad or from my phone, and then that way that solves the solution of using that short power cord. The SP410 is definitely a great contender when it comes to thermal printers. That is definitely one I'll be using in my rotation. I don't use my SP420 as much just because it is bigger. I will bring it out and use it when I'm printing several things at once. It does help in that aspect, but that SP410, that one's definitely going on the shelf, and I'll just use it from my iPad or from my phone. Now you may or may not have seen my previous videos where I show you different ways that I use my thermal printer, but I'll just give you a rundown really quickly of some of the different ways you can use a thermal printer. One, of course, being printing your shipping labels. Now, if you don't know the benefits of thermal printers, really quickly, thermal printers, they do not use ink. So it saves you on cost in using ink. So of course, there's special type of paper you have to use with the thermal printer, which is why I mentioned how to get them for free, because it's just more paper you have to buy if you don't get them for free. Now, there are like receipt paper is also a thermal printer. So if you provide receipts with your orders, you can also use the thermal printer for receipts instead of shipping labels, or both if you need both. Also remember, thermal printers only print black. There is no color ink in here because again, remember, thermal printers do not use ink, but there are colored labels. You can get labels in different colors and then it'll print in black ink on it. So it'll be whatever color label you do and then black. But some of the other ways that I've shown you how to use thermal printers, you can do it for custom packaging, which I have full videos on how you can do that, even with items from Dollar Tree. As I mentioned, you can use it for your receipts or invoices. If you provide invoices for your customers, you can use your thermal printer versus using a real printer where you have to continuously buy ink. If you provide return labels to your customers, use your thermal printer for that too. I've also shown you how you can use your thermal printer for inventory management. You can use your thermal printer for like thank you cards, thank you messages, gift messages, or even special offers. A couple other ways you can use a thermal printer is for packing lists, product labels and tags for your products, and compliance labels for those of you that are selling products that require compliance labels. There's so many different ways to use a thermal printer that I'm not going to run through all of them, but at the end of the day, once you start using a thermal printer, you'll see how you'll use your regular printer a lot less. So that's it for this week's video. If you guys are interested in the SP410, by the way, I did get it off Amazon. I did not mention that, but I'll leave the link down in the description box as well as in the comments so you guys can check it out. It is a better pricing than the Rollo. The only thing that now I don't like about it is that it is slightly bigger, but since it's not going to be on the top of my desk, it is actually going to be on the shelf. The size doesn't even matter anymore. So I do recommend the iDPRT SP410. Thank you guys for watching.